Hey, legends, welcome back to the Mason Cox Show. A lot to cover on this one. There is a Brownlow favorite that might be losing his chance of winning the whole thing. We're going to talk about also Dimma dropped an F-bomb. Whoa, that was a bit of a story this week. And also, there's a few injuries we need to go through because the league is seeing a few go down. We're going to get into that and much, much more starting on the podcast right now. All right, legends, we've got a big episode, so starting off as we always do, welcome, Brayden.
I want to jump into my clanger because this week I'm clanging myself.
Huge.
So rip the Band-Aid off nice and early.
Is it because you just talked trash all last week, or is this a fresh one?
I went pretty hard last week. I've had the flu, so I don't know if you might be able to hear me wheezing over here, but I reckon I can blame that for last week's aggression. It was very aggressive. This week I'm bringing the zen.
Yeah, okay.
A lot more positivity.
Right,
so I clanged myself because last week I said St Kilda was the most boring ticket in town.
They heard you.
Yeah, and then they came out and beat Sydney Swans by 2 points in what was quite the blockbuster, holding on. But I will say...
Oh, here we go. Cover your tracks.
A bit of like defending myself. And it's similar. I'll put them in the same boat. We got a boat.
Yep.
And we're going to put them in the boat and we're going to put Fremantle in the boat.
Huge.
And say, look at this. Look at this, right?
Yeah.
When you play exciting, fast footy, you win. And it's a much more enjoyable game. People buy the tickets. It's an entertainment sport. We all go along. We're all happy.
Yeah.
When you play the other shit that you play, sad, slow, depressing, defensive crap, you don't win, and no one's enjoying it.
You don't sell the tickets.
So we'll play fast, we'll play exciting. I'll get behind St Kilda. I'm always behind Fremantle. I love the purple mist or whatever the hell they are.
The purple mist.
Love it out there, the old heave-ho. But yeah, so I'm clanging myself for saying that the most boring ticket in town. If they play like they played on the weekend, sign me up. I'm getting a ticket. I'm going down there.
You get a membership.
I don't.
Can we confirm that?
I don't like going to the footy. I like watching in the safe space of my own little house. But
cracking VBs.
Other people will start going, and it'll be good. Anyway, what's your clanger this week?
Now, I must preface this with I do have a massive amount of love and respect for cheer squads around the league. Not just Collingwood's cheer squads, but everyone. Because
what are you doing?
They do a fantastic job, whether it be carrying those big pom-poms that make no damn sense behind the goals that looks like it's 100 years old, or making custom signs. There's some beautiful things they do, right? But there's one sign in general that they've kind of messed up here and there. And over the weekend, I hate to call them out, but the Richmond Tigers cheer squad had a little bit of a debacle with their banner, you could say. Now, don't get me wrong. Rainy day, bit of wind. Not great for a banner, right?
Not
especially
good
something that's made of paper, right?
Banner weather, no.
Not great. Over the weekend, though, it was just scattered. It looked like a chessboard by the time they'd kind of gotten out there and we're about to run through it. I think everyone was a bit confused. And we've had this experience, right? In 2018, we had it's a very famous banner that just disintegrated in the middle of air. And, Bucks was kind enough to hug the cheer squad member. And, a very lovely experience. Obviously, I was a bit confused while walking out, thinking, maybe we're doing a combined one or something. I'm not really sure.
It was an important day, that one. That was a pretty big banner, that one.
Yeah, we got it right in 2023, though. You don't worry about that. But yeah, that's going to be my clanger of the week. It's a love thing, right? I'm trying to put enough love out there just because I know it's not an easy thing. It's a lot of people are giving their free time to make these things, and we appreciate them as players. We really do. I still kind of think it's funny that grown men run through a banner before a game and sing a whimsical tune after in a whole huddle, but we're going to move on to that. We're going to move on from that and get into the results because there's plenty I'll go on a ramble about, but let's go straight into the games now.
I said I was going to be nice this week, and you've already come out and clanged the nice people that give up their free time to make the crate paper banner.
Did you not hear my preface?
I prefaced
it, which means I can say whatever I want after.
Don't get offended. That's one of those ones. Don't be offended, but nah. Results this week. We'll skip over the Collingwood game. Yep. North Melbourne got the win over your Gold Coast Suns. We'll have to talk about that because Dimma wasn't happy. Port Melbourne absolutely demolished the Western Bulldogs. Port Melbourne Football Club. Port Melbourne Football Club might have beaten the Western Bulldogs given what they dished up, but Port Adelaide back on their winning ways. Yep. Geelong beat Hawthorn. That was
massive win.
That was a big win because I thought, Hawthorn might have got there. GWS got the chocolates against Carlton, but it looked, a bit touch and go early. Fremantle, big win over Richmond, expected that. Melbourne got the chocolates over West Coast, big win, expected that. St Kilda, most exciting ticket in town, got the dub over the Sydney Swans, and Brisbane got the job done against Adelaide. But Adelaide, they took the fight up to them. So what are the big talking points? Well, we can't go past Isaac Heaney and his little back fist to Jimmy Webster. Now, Jimmy Webster's had his own indiscretions, so you think you might get a free pass for that one, but no, you can't hit anyone. So it's not a tit for tat.
Tit for tat, I think.
Yeah, I can't. Can
We're
I say
nailing it?
Can I say tit? Can I say tit on the podcast this early, or we're going to get demonetized?
That's one way to find out.
Let's jump into it because it is what it is at the moment where we stand, and as we're recording this, he's got 1 week. No doubt they'll challenge that one, but as we've seen in the past, these Brownlow medalists normally get a favourable decision when it's taken to the tribunal. Yep. Do you feel like that's an actual tangible thing? Do Brownlow favourites get looked after when they take it to the tribunal?
I think what will happen most likely is the team will do anything and everything within their power to try to change it. So you talk about like going to the MRO, right? They'll definitely challenge that. And then, they might challenge the challenge. I'm not sure how many times you can do this, but I've seen it before in the past where somehow you can get legal people involved and then challenge the challenge from a perspective of that, and then someone else gets involved. So, it's a massive ordeal to have a Brownlow medalist come play at your club and be able to have a season like he's having. So I think from their standpoint, they're going to do anything and everything in their, capabilities to make sure that he doesn't get a week. Do I think probably based on other situations that have happened this year, the AFL's ruling would probably adjudicate a week, and that's what they've decided. So I think that's pretty on brand. But we've seen these things happen. It's going to be an interesting little MRO case. He kind of swung back and then apologized right away. He knew he'd done stuffed up.
Yeah.
He knew it as soon as he did it. He was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. He looked down as to almost be like, oh, can I help you up? Oh, I also need to go get the footy at the same time.
He did. He actually did. He kicked the goal. Yeah. And it was an important goal.
So the first thing that always pops to my mind in these circumstances are the Patrick Cripps situation. But that was
they need to hire Carlton's lawyer. Yeah. That's the number one thing they should be doing is calling that guy.
Yeah. So maybe it's a bit of favoritism, but maybe it's also teams try extra hard when their absolute marquee players need to be getting off. So it's a wait and see on that one. But normally the thing that rolls out of these circumstances are they'll get off. Inevitably, these Brownlow favourites will get off. And then it turns into a bit of a shambles down the line because a player not in contention for the Brownlow will pretty much do the identical thing and get rubbed out for weeks. So I think just stand by for that because it's not really, it's always an inevitability. There's no exception to the rule. It happens. You'll watch next week, someone will have a backswinging arm and it'll be, the same thing all over again. But I think out of these, because we've had, Harley Reid, we've had Sam Darcy be rubbed out for the contention for the Rising Star. We've got Heaney now temporarily rubbed out at least for the Brownlow. Do you think we should keep the fairest elements to all of these awards and medals, or should we be removing that so we get the truest definition of the best player and the best young player gets the award, even if they've been rubbed out for a week or two?
Yeah, I mean, there's two other awards you look at. It's like the coach's MVP and the AFL players MVP, right? So it's voted on by the players and voted on by the coaches. And I wish those were held with, a bit of a more respect in that sense, because I think obviously everyone looks to the Brownlow and says, oh, that's the best player, but whenever you're adjudicated by your peers and opposition coaches in that sense and you're decided to be the best player, I feel like that has a bit more pull and a lot more legitimacy in a sense of a player's mind because you look at, I've said this before, is like umpires, hopefully they're umpiring, not adjudicating who's the best player on the field, right? And I think the fairest part, I understand. I totally get that. I've always been a fan of, the best part of a best and fairest should be an independent review panel, whether it be made up of people from the media, whether it be made up of people that, are involved in football, whatever it is. But I think the fairest part should be umpires. And there should be maybe the head of umpiring should be adjudicating whether or not someone's suspended, maybe. Maybe that's a bit smarter. Someone that's actually making the rules and upholding them within the game should probably be the person that's probably adjudicating whether someone should be suspended or not. But instead, we choose this independent review panel who I don't even think anyone really knows who it's made up of, and they decide whether or not a player was malicious in a certain act, right? So I find it interesting that that's the way it's adjudicated here. I've never quite understood or like really gotten why they do it that way. But I always thought the umpire should deal with the fairest, and then the best part should be an independent review panel that's involved in the footy industry.
Yeah. So what you're saying is instead of the MRO adjudicating like who should be suspended and who shouldn't, the umpires should be adjudicating who's getting suspended for what during the season.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a head of umpiring. That person should be looking at vision and everything else and seeing the stuff behind the play and stuff that people might get suspended for, adjudicating that. And if someone wants to challenge it, what does a challenge do? They go to a court case, which is the MRO, to figure out whether or not it should go. I don't know if that sounds too logical.
Hey, well, they know the rules the best, right?
You know, it's something that I've always found amazing because you look at the MRO and how many people are involved. I've been to one of them myself, and the amount of people and lawyers that get involved and people that are not probably cheap per the hour.
Tribunal.
Yeah, the tribunal. I find it amazing that's still the way and the most efficient way, I think, to be able to, like, surely you just use someone that's hired within the AFL. You don't go and probably pay people an hourly rate to go be a judge on a fake court case about something that's happened in sport who isn't really involved in the sport anymore.
It is so weird.
It's such an odd way of putting it together.
It's like a fake little court case.
It is a fake court case.
That's weird.
Like, whenever I went in there, like, I didn't swear in whenever I went in.
Yeah.
But I got treated as if I was a fucking criminal in that joint for 2.5 hours. And we knew what it was going to be before we even got in there.
Yeah.
And they told us the way it was going to end up. And we still had to go through 2.5 hours of just absolutely getting reamed by some guy. Yes, no questions, as if I'd committed a murder.
If it's a fake trial, they should at least give it the Judge Judy treatment. Like, you should have like a little famous judge in there with the hammer and the curls, and we'd turn it into a bit of a thing, because I've been in, like, I was on the journo side of things, and you got to sit out in that cold little hallway with your camera waiting for people to come out, and you have no idea how long it's going to take, and you're waiting because you want to just go and eat dinner and stuff.
You got Tom Brown just like tweeting the whole thing out, and you're like, what are we doing?
Yeah, chuck a camera in there.
What are we doing?
Put a camera in there. It's not a real court case.
It's not a real court case. We don't need to follow real laws because it's not a real thing.
That's so stupid. The whole thing's so dumb. But anyway, we'll move on because we can talk about that all night. But Logan McDonald, this is unfortunate.
Oh,
but,
I feel for this man.
You know, he put himself in the right position, right place, right time, just not the right result for him and the Sydney Swans. But 2 weeks in a row, he's had a chance to potentially win the game. One was after the siren last week where he missed
needed a point
missed a lot. He needed a point to draw, goal to win. Missed the lot. This week, a little bit closer, a little bit straighter, better kick. Got his point this week.
You're really turning the positives this week. You're just a very positive man today. I love it.
He needed the goal, though. This week he couldn't get the points. So he got the point. Unfortunately, couldn't get his team across the line. Do you like that he was pretty confident going back and having the crack at goal? Like, what does that take mentally to be able to go back and try to shake those demons?
The only way to shake those demons from the week before is to do it again. And like, he got the opportunity, and like, unfortunately it didn't kind of pan out. But like, the only way to shake demons, I think, in that sense is, you know, obviously practice, getting comfortable in that stressful scenario. But I mean, it's back-to-back weeks. Like, that's just like phenomenal to think that the same person's taking the same kick essentially on 1 week and then the very next week. So it was tough to see because you kind of want that feel-good story of like, hey, man, you had a rough week last week. You know, you kicked it this week and you had an absolute gun. And, you know, unfortunately, he wasn't able to put it through. But you got to look at things in a positive light, right? Like, the fact that he was, you know, did the work to be able to be given that chance and that circumstance to be able to try and win the game for your team is a positive within itself. You know, I think you got to have that mentality and say, look, you know, you can hit this shot. You know, that's within your repertoire, and you're getting the opportunities. All it is just a matter of you finishing. And like, I know that's a lot easier said than done, but it's just repetition and feeling comfortable in your skin whenever you're in that high pressure situation.
It was cool that he took the shot. Hopefully, I think Horse said one day he'll get it and he'll kick it and he'll be able to feel good about himself.
And the boys will lose their mind. They'll go so nuts. I love it.
All right, so we'll move on because we're back on the merry-go-round of which coach should get the sack. Because we talk about it each week. We've had Chris Fagan. At the start of the year. Now, look how much he's turned it around. We've had Luke Beveridge over the year. We had Ken Hinckley just last couple of weeks ago. Now he's won 2 in a row. So they're looking for someone else. They're talking about Adam Simpson this week with the poor West Coast Eagles after having so much success over his career. And now they're going through a bit of a struggle patch. They actually were being pretty competitive through the middle part of the year, but, it's a long, long season. I just want to look at all of these coaches in general and think that some of these coaches are around for 10 plus years and give a lot to these clubs. Obviously, they take a wage from it, but you've been in the 4 walls. It's so much more than just a job.
Oh, it's your life. It really is.
You have to be all in on it, and it trains you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. There's got to be a way, and this is just I'm opening up the floor to a discussion of
who are you asking?
I just think of these awesome coaches, especially premiership coaches that bring so much to a club. That there's got to be a amicable way to end a time at a club where you can celebrate a coach.
I think it's always hard whenever you win a premiership as a coach because then that becomes your bar.
Yeah.
Right? So then as a coach, everyone says, look, if you don't win a premiership, then it's an unsuccessful season because we know you can do it. We've seen you do it before. So it's one of those things I think as a coach, it's got to be tough because obviously it's a bit of a cyclical thing with players that come through. You have experienced players that you've built up and then you have to kind of revamp it. And it's never, you can try to get the young players to come through and be consistently good at the top the whole time, but it's actually quite tough. Everyone goes in cycles. You look at what Richmond's having to go through at the moment, after losing Jack and Trent and all that, they've kind of now have to restructure a bit and then try to get some people with experience to be the leaders of that team. And it's just one of those things that happens. And I take it from my standpoint of what I've experienced with Bucks mid-season. And like you said, it was a bit of a celebration for that week. But I mean, how many years did he coach there? 8, 9 years or something like that?
Yeah, 2013 to 20.
It's a fair chunk of your life to give up. And it's not I don't think people understand kind of the time and the hours and the mental capacity you have to do a head coaching job. I think every week you're having to talk to probably 10 people and breaking their hearts saying, look, you're not playing AFL this week. You have the beauty of saying, you're playing your first game and things like that too. But to try to keep those people on the edge, still motivated, even though you have to give them bad news on a consistent basis, is a hard thing. And it's not then you look at the end of the year and you're having to sack people. It's there's so many negative things you have to do that's, and you have these personal relationships with these guys. So it's got to be a gut-wrenching thing to, tell them it's done. And it's not a job I kind of wish on anyone, really. No. It's one of the hardest jobs I've ever seen. So yeah, it's a weird one of how do you kind of show the respect on the way out. You look at Dimma, 2 years ago, whenever he stopped with Richmond, he kind of said, look, this is kind of my decision. And he kind of took it on himself to move on rather than saying, I'm going to let the club essentially sack me, which was a different thing I don't think we've really seen too often. Usually it's the club goes, hey, see you later. You've got a week to, we're going to move someone else into this position. But even whenever Bucks left, we had Harves came in as a head coach.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have the next head coach ready to go.
Yeah.
So then we played, half a season with the head coaching staff that was most likely to leave after the year. So then you're going, okay, would have been better just to keep Bucks and then be able to say halfway through the year, this is your last year, let's just celebrate the last chunk of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where the better side of it comes from, but I think as a coach, you'd want to probably see the year out and say, look, you're just going to have to play the young guys if we want to, get experience in people. And it's a bit of a conversation coming from probably the board down to the coach of saying, look, this is where you stand. We're going to make a public statement probably 4 or 5 weeks out from the end of the season if you're not successful. And, be able to celebrate what you've been able to do with our club.
We'll move on to talk about the Melbourne West Coast game because this one was a bit interesting. Melbourne,
bit scrappy.
Yeah, Melbourne obviously got the big win, but there was a lot of talking points, a lot of injuries. So Max Gawn's come out of this one with an injured ankle. Pickett hurt his finger. Oscar Allen played through his sore ankle, but probably the worst of the lot. Jeremy McGovern injured his ribs and lungs again. doing.
He's got some bad ribs.
Well, just doing courageous shit. Going back to stop people kicking goals. He always seems to put himself in, a vulnerable position. So, yeah, he went to the hospital and got all checked out. I actually saw him a couple of times on the weekend.
Did you?
Yeah, he was walking down Chapel Street and
just strutting the stuff.
Going
chap laps for Will McGovern.
Yeah, so at least he got to see Melbourne before he got to see the hospitals. But yeah, so it's going to be an interesting one, the fallout for that, because Melbourne's, running on a pretty thin roster as it is at the moment. Gawn's going to miss a couple off the back of that. West Coast, they're done as it is. Like, they got no players really, so that's not going to help them at all. Losing McGovern and then Oscar Allen, if he's not playing at 100%. He just can't seem to get a good run at it at the moment.
We know he's one of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
He just needs to have his body kind of be able to stick up for himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would be good to see them all be able to play together for an extended period of time. So,
for sure.
Prayers up for McGovern. We did see an interesting scrap between Max Gawn and Harley Reid. Now, this was an interesting matchup. Max Gawn kind of got him. He was on top. You'd probably expect it.
It's always funny whoever's on top is a winner, right? Is that the idea?
That's pretty much it. But Max Gawn, big, heavy unit. Reid,
pick some feedback.
Pick on someone that's not 2 meters tall. I know you're confident. Just pick on some guys that are like.
I love it. Hey, a little bit of fire from Reid. I love it. Go after the biggest guy on the ground. So I ain't afraid of you.
A lot of scraps over the weekend. Your boy Cozzy Pickett.
Huge.
Another hanger.
Huge hanger.
He was threatening big ones all year. He's taken a couple of speculative attempts. But he stuck this one. Do you reckon it's any better than your teammates' marks?
Nah, I've still got the other boys ahead of him. Love Cozzy. Everyone knows I love Pickett. It was such a good one. Like, seeing the way it was just set up perfectly. Everyone knows, like, the ball's kicked up and you see the defender 4 steps ahead of him, and he's just sitting there, just lurking, just ready to pounce. It was just perfectly set up for something like that. So it was a very good hanger. I don't think it's better than Bobby's. And I don't think it's better than Jamie's. They both, like, Jamie and Bobby actually hung in the air on the shoulders for like a decent second or two.
Yeah.
And Bobby just landed on his feet and it just looked so clean.
Yeah.
Where Jamie's was like, he kind of like went forward with it. So I don't know, whoever the hell's adjudicating mark of the year to sort that out. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna top him. It's gonna top him.
Normally, I don't like it when they land on their feet, but there's something about Bobby's. He like landed with like a strut, like
kicks it out for 2. Just let him know, Bobby.
Let's talk about Zach Butters, because he is.
Speaking of fights,
Zach Butters I will say Zach Butters is going to be the most fined AFL player in the history of the game.
Yeah,
which is pretty wild to think. He's so young still.
He's got a bit to go too.
And he's going to pass Toby Green, which is like, I thought Toby Green would have been streets ahead of everyone. So you're doing some stuff wrong if you're zooming past Toby Green in terms of fines, because Toby's done some shit. I just wanted to break this down because I wanted to know, like, how do you stop him? Because we saw Ken Hinckley during the game have a bit of a word, because, he's literally just been in trouble the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
For people who are getting under his skin. They're realizing that if you pay close attention to him and, keep bumping him and keep giving him extra attention, he can lose his cool. And that's what he keeps doing. So we saw Kenny Hinckley, because he was wrestling again on the weekend, just be like, come on, mate, what are you doing? How do I get you to stop? It's your money.
It's your cash. Yeah,
I don't want you to cross the line into suspension territory, because we need you.
It's tax deductible.
So I just want to ask, like, if a teammate of yours was in the same boat, just doing the same thing, constantly flirting with suspension, really, punching blokes off the ball, what would you do? Would you have a word with him, with the leadership, have a word with him? What happens if he keeps reoffending? Can you take that internally and punish them internally? Like, what? How would you go about it?
Yeah, I think you probably have the conversation around the cautionary way of looking at it, because you don't want him to get suspended because he's such a big part of their team, right? So I think the leadership group or someone or the coach or whatever it is kind of says, look, like, there is a high probability of you getting suspended if you keep doing this shit, and we need you in the game, and we need you playing for us to be able to try to make finals and try to make a run at this thing. And And I think it's more that conversation and maybe giving him a bit of advice where if you see him getting, aroused, if you see him getting heated up, with someone bumping him wherever it is, giving him that feedback of like, think about back to like, what's the movie with Adam Sandler? It's like, Goose Flabba. Oh. Goose Flabba. Yeah, give him a little word. Give him a word to be like, get out of your own head and realize the situation and then just calm down, right? Whether it be 3 breaths, whether it be some let the psychologist of the club sort that out. But I think that's the conversation you need to have with him to say like, look, you need to make sure that you're not going to cost us by costing yourself.
Yeah. So he needs a little mantra.
Maybe he needs to write like Steel Sabon has like get up on his hand. Maybe something like that. Right. Just a real obvious statement.
Let's move on to the big winners because we do have Port as the big winners. 2 wins back to back after Kenny.
Back on.
Pretty much straight after Kenny had been booed. He's won 2 back to back. And all the big names are firing. Georgiades kicked 5 goals, 1. Up forward, Horny Frank, our boy, 3 goals, 20 disposals. Rosie, 36 and a goal. Butters, 33 and a goal. And Ollie Wines, 30 and a goal.
Huge.
So they all kind of turned it on against the Bulldogs. And it was good to see. But we will look forward to the ball, and at the moment, their accuracy just isn't there with some of their forwards. We look at Finlayson's going at 34%.
Yeah.
34%, that's pretty low. Marshall, who everyone calls a dead-eye dick, he's at 42%. 20 goals, 17, couple of misses. Mm-hmm. Dixon, he's had a bit of an off year. So Georgiades is rolling at 56%, which is pretty good strike rate. 27 goals, 17. They're more accurate forward.
Yeah.
So he's
I don't know.
He's important to the team, but you know what he has done? He's gone out and whacked a bloke, and he's going to miss next week, which is an important game. Every game's important for Port. And now you got your most accurate forward coming off 5 goals who whacked a bloke. He's going to miss a game. And that game is the Gold Coast Suns away.
My boys.
And we know how good the Suns are at home because they're not good anywhere else. So
People's First Stadium.
They have to be pretty good over at People's First Stadium. So that's just another one that Ken must, if he had hair, he'd be pulling it out because some of these players are really letting him down when he's fighting for his life out there. We will say Boak. We want to get around one play here. Now, poor Travis Boak. I'm not putting you in the gun because it's the Positivity Podcast this week, so we're going to get around Travis Boak because looking at those stats, I did discover that Travis Boak is 0 goals, 11 for the year.
Mate.
That's not very good. So we're going to get around him.
He's getting his first goal this week.
We're here for Travis Boak Watch.
I'm here for it,
if Travis Boak kicks his first goal, what are you going to do?
What am I going to do? I'm going to get excited to see that go to something at 11.
We're going to we'll make that a challenge. If Travis Boak kicks his first goal this week against the Suns, at People's First against your team, send in a challenge that you want Mason to do. Mason's going to have to do something because this is the happiness pod this week.
You're throwing me under the bus.
What are some things?
I don't appreciate this backhanded thing with Boak.
This is great. No,
he's
this
a good
is the
man.
Positivity
He's a
Podcast.
legend who's absolutely killed it in his career. And I know looking at some of these statistics, right? You got some of the percentages up here. Dixon, 46%. That's not too bad. I feel like that's pretty normal. But I think a lot of it, you come down to, where are you taking your set shots from? Are they boundary? Are they in front? And some of this, percentages you're talking about goal kicking accuracy. I feel like you've harped on this before. Is some of it might be the way they're offensively going inside 50, and maybe it's some of their smalls or whatever it is are getting snaps from the angle that's not really a great percentage shot. But it's a bit dewy up there, up in the Gold Coast. It's going to be an interesting thing.
I have a good counterpoint.
Do you think they'll kick over 50% accuracy over the weekend?
No. No, looking at that, no, because the percentages that I left out were all their mids that are way worse than those percentages. So they don't really have any good shots at goal.
Georgiades,
Georgiades, who's not playing because so I will say that because that's an argument is like, but they might get harder shots because they're leading up. They might be forced into the pockets and all that, but that's their craft. That's their... You train that the whole time.
Too. It's a game plan at times too.
Yeah, because I see these mids coming forward. Like you look at Sydney.
Yeah.
All their mids just kick them from 55, 60 from the boundary and they're just so accurate. And I just wonder if, you're a forward that trains goal kicking your whole time and you're still rolling out a 30, 40%er. I don't get it. Like, I feel like what
would you do to fix goal kicking, Brayden, as a coach? Because you're...
I feel like if you look at every other sport in the world, they're way better at their craft.
Yeah. So Shaquille O'Neal, free throws, pretty good?
No, that's not his craft. His craft is dunking.
His craft.
We look at like Steph Curry. It's a lot harder to get a basketball that's this big in a ring that's that big. If we're looking at difficulty, how big between posts? You got 10-meter gap to kick it through? That's a long 16 gap.
Meters that way. It's not
Man, we all need to get better at our craft.
I want to see you. I'll give you 10 shots at goal. I'd love to know what your percentage would be.
Yeah, they got to be within 40 because I can't kick. There's no way that I could kick 40.
We're going to test this out.
Someone did ask last week after I said that I'm not great at goal kicking accuracy. They asked if they were surprised to hear that I played AFL, and I have to say that although I thank you for the compliment of thinking that I could potentially be an former AFL player. Yeah, I did not play AFL at any stage in my career. I played footy. I played Australian rules football. Yeah, for the Tachira Bulldogs.
Yeah, give him a shout out. Give him a shout out.
I was a defender. No one kicked a goal on me. In my season, I think I only played
games you played? I was about to say,
I think I played games is it? I think I played 6 or 7 games. It was I was 16, under 17.
Under 17.
But yeah, I can take that to the grave with me. Yeah, okay. But no, but they also did say in the same message that I've seemed to up my style. So,
huge.
Not today. I'm lounging today, but I'll be back next week with some more style. Anyway, we'll move on because I'm sick of talking about you. And we'll go to the GWS because they were another big winner, my boys, and lucky I didn't get off them. That was the one thing that
Were you off them in the first half, though?
No.
Be honest.
Not at all.
Be honest. Be honest. Did you turn it off? Did you turn the channel to another game?
I was pretty grim on them because I was like, fuck, Carlton's just going to get another big pump and win. And then I was like, Carlton's the informed team in the comp at the moment.
Yeah.
But they fumbled the bag. So that was pretty good to see. GWS, big come from behind win. Come from behind is it a come from behind if you're down in the first quarter? Like, it's not really a come from behind.
You stop saying come from behind.
Come on now. It's a G-rated podcast. What I will say is Jesse Hogan, Big Daddy Hogs, he's kicked 5 from 11 targets. He's great. Love to see it. Hogan, he's third club and he's just turned everything around because I reckon Melbourne, he was just a kid trying to find his way, went to Freo, didn't really have a good run of it at Freo at all, moved up to GWS and it was like, what's going to change here? Third club, and boy, he has turned it all around. And it's awesome to see he's, a dominant force up there for him, especially when Toby Green, fair to say that he's been a bit down on form. So it's great to see Hogan up there firing for him. Toby Bedford, another interesting game. He played on Walsh early in the game, kind of shut him down, and then Cripps got off the hook. So then he went to Cripps and kind of, calmed him down a bit. Cripps still had a massive game, but he did a good job across both of them. We saw Big Briggsy. We love to see that. Keep an eye on the big ruckman. He had a big game, 22 disposals, 40 hitouts.
40 hitouts.
40's handy. It's not a plumber, but it's handy. 10 clearances. So we like to see Briggs back up there in form of, he really took off last year. So it's good to see him get back to some of that form. And then the old dog, Cal Ward.
Love this.
30 touches. What did he kick? 2 goals. We like that. We like anything.
Love the old fellas just smoking.
It's wild to me. He kicked their first goal ever.
Did he really?
Yeah. And now he's kicking. He's still kicking.
Kicking goals. Still kicking goals, getting 30 touches.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. And now GWS back in the 8, obviously, unfortunately, knocked Collingwood down to 9th. But, they got you'd suggest a win, or they're at least going to go in favourites next week against Richmond. So they've put themselves back into a good position, which is lucky why I didn't jump off them. And I gave them the extra week. Calmness prevailed, and we had a little win off the back of saying St Kilda sucks. So it evened out. Now we'll move into this because this is what we all wanted to talk about, the big losers for the week. Now, your boys, the Gold Coast Suns, they haven't got it done on the road. That's an understatement. They've lost the last 15 on the road.
15 games.
And this was against North. Now, North aren't exactly world beaters at the moment. They're having a bit of a form patch, and they're turning it around. But Dimma wasn't having a bar of it. He came out and said, as a footy club, we need to grow the fuck up. And for starters, hearing that was very refreshing.
Yeah.
As a Gold Coast fan, are you guys out there? I'm sure.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I'm sitting right here. I'm sitting right here.
I'm sure they would have, loved to hear it, because you love to hear the passion. You love to hear from the coach exactly what you're thinking. Because you'd be like, what is this bullshit? Why can't we win on the road? What the fuck's going on? And when the coach says exactly what you're thinking, you're like, great.
Yeah,
it's going to be addressed. We know what's going. What is happening here? We're all on the same page. So it was great to see from Dimma. Now, he apologized multiple times about his use of the language. But for me, it was refreshing, and we love to see the honesty from the coaches. We always say that, and then we have a million articles written on it after the fact saying, oh, you can't swear, you can't do this, you can't do that. We like the personality. We like the raw honesty of it. How did you... First of all, the presser, how did you see that? What was your take on the swearing and his emotions after the game?
I mean, he'd be pretty frustrated, I think. It's fair to say that, right? The language is like, I think like if you were to sit there and take the F word out of that, I don't think it would be that much of a story.
No.
I think people are like, yep, we need to grow as a team. We need to get experience in us to be able to win these on the road and have a successful season to be able to, like, you can't have a successful season if you're not winning on the road.
No.
Like, you have to do that. And you can't lose 15 games straight on the road and be okay with that. Like, that there needs to be a standard to say that we need to be able to win on the road, and beat teams. If we want to be in the top 8, we have to make sure that we get the wins against the teams that are outside of the top 8, right? Like, that's simple maths, really. And I actually like it from him. I think Dimma, like, it would be a frustrating experience for him, I think, going from Richmond, who he had seen so much success with, was a club that was a lot bigger club, probably had a lot more resources in that sense and things like that, that he's now gone to a club that maybe doesn't have as much of that, or, doesn't have the amount of fans that Richmond had. It's like, it's almost not necessarily a step down, but it's just a different experience for him. And it could be frustrating at times. I can totally understand that. First year coach, new club, getting to know people, like, there's a lot of stress involved, right? And he wants to see him successful. And like, they, for changing coaches and still being where they are right now and having a bit of a run, like, it's actually, it's a credit to them. It's not easy. Usually whenever you switch coaches, you have a bit of a down year, you try to figure out the new system and everything else, but like right now, they're still in the hunt for the top 8, which is something they've never done before. So I don't think there's like it's doom and gloom. Yes, you need to win on the road. And I think he's very, very pointy with the way he kind of said it, but I'm kind of a fan of it. I know. If you don't like the F word that's put in there, Channel 7 can just bleep it out, I'm sure. But yeah, I think he's just straight up giving his actual thoughts after the game. Like, I don't think there's an issue with it. He'd be quite frustrated losing to North Melbourne on the weekend. And yeah, there is a bit of a thing around them losing away from home. So it's personality. You're caught in the moment. As a coach, you care. You give a shit. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Do you like...
You'd be more worried if you just rocked up after a loss to North Melbourne on the road, losing 15 games in a row, going, yeah, it's just, it was a tough day, but we move on. You'd be like, as a supporter, you'd be like, come on, man. Give me something.
Yeah. Do you like it when coaches use the public forum to G up the team?
There's right and wrong ways to go about it. I think you always want to look after, obviously, like the club and the fans and things like that. And I think, like, you look at maybe this comment about the footy club, and you could see the other side of it, or like the football club being like, oh shit, like, you're kind of having to dig at us, not just the players, but the club as a whole. So, I can see both sides of it, but I don't think. I don't know. I don't think it's a great thing. I think it's more you get the energy whenever an opposition coach says that. Yeah. When an opposition coach or an opposition player says something, that gives you that motivation, that little extra ticker to be like, nah, we're going to go at these boys. Yeah,
I think Justin Longmuir said either last week or the week before, he came out and said, like, there was a few of our mids, like, just padding for stats rather than playing team footy. Yeah. So I don't mind it when a coach uses it to spark up, like, like maybe a section or a group that maybe haven't taken the direction or whatever and haven't listened, and then you put it on notice in a public forum.
Yeah.
I like that externally. I just never thought about, how much that could influence internally. If you might be able to rub the players up the wrong way, or hopefully how they'll respond to something like that being their coach. But it's always an interesting one. Have you ever been called out like publicly in a forum?
Not publicly. Probably said some statements that were made by certain players at the club we do not appreciate and we condone. That's probably where I've been called out, I think, the most.
Yeah, nice. I like that. We'll move quickly through the Western Bulldogs because it's fair to say big losers from the weekend, getting flogged by Port, who, have been in the gun themselves in recent times. So there's no real shame losing to Port at home because they are still a decent team, but the way that they lost wasn't great. And especially their forwards, how they...
We talked about the tall timber that was like getting put into this game. Lob goes back. You still got 3 tall forwards.
Yeah. It was interesting because Norton went out early with concussion. Sam Darcy didn't kick a goal. Hugo Hagen didn't kick a goal. They persisted with lob back. And then it was really just the Bont doing Bont things, went forward, kicked 3 goals. Ads Trelaw racked up almost 40 touches. It's kind of the same old. So, yeah, they've gone past Mulligan stage for me where you can't just write this one off because it's a pretty consistent pattern that it's every other week. But they do come back home and they've got a big game against Carlton next week.
At Marvel.
At Marvel.
It is a home game, which, you'd love to see the Bulldogs fire up from that game, losing by a big margin to Port Adelaide at home, to see them go back, have a home game against one of the best teams in the league in form at the moment and to get a win. I think that would really help their fan base get a bit of hope and faith, I think.
Because I thought they turned the corner. I was that close.
We've said this before. It's like, they have a game, they go, oh man, this is maybe a turn the corner, and they get, they're going to win 5 or 6 straight, and then they, lose one that's maybe winnable 2 weeks later or something. You just never really feel like you have 100%, finger on the pulse of where they're at.
Yeah.
I feel like the Bulldogs have always kind of been like that, but they're still in the hunt, man. There's still a chance. They just have to, we're getting to the pointy end. We'll talk about it later is how close the ladder is. And really, there's far out. There's probably 15 teams that are a chance to make the 8 at the moment. So
and that's what I'm getting more and more wary of is writing a team off because it's a very close year, but it's a close year where all teams are falling down. So it's going to be one of those ones that who's there. It's a Stephen Bradbury who's there at the last moment because every team that's had every team so far has had a moment where they've been down, whether it's been Collingwood has been down, Brisbane's been down, Bulldogs have been down, Port's been down, everyone's been down or had their moments. Sydney is currently going through it with 2 losses in a row and they looked unbeatable 3 weeks ago. So every team's got these down patches and we're just going to see who can get it right coming into finals. And then, we looked at Geelong. Geelong were like a shambles and now they had a big win over the weekend. So it's really anyone's to win it. We'll go through to the Collingwood game because that's another one. We put it on Essendon that it's, they're a bit up and down, but they're holding strong their position inside the top 4. Are they still in the top 4?
Top 4
It's crazy. And everyone was questioning them. Can they beat a good team? Because they've been beating teams that are lower down on the ladder and any excuse to kind of throw at this Essendon team because people have been waiting for them to drop. Well, they're not dropping. And they had a massive win to their credit over Collingwood on the weekend. Lots of pressure. Zach Merritt. Oh my God, bro.
Absolute gun.
He's got to be up there. Looking at that game, and I heard someone say that he should be right up there for All-Australian captain contention.
Captain.
And I think this year he's put his hand up because the way that he's led the team, he's doing it at both ends. He's kicking goals, but he's getting back. He's saving games, chasing, tackling, bringing players along with him. He's been massive.
Do you have him as the captain of the AA squad right now?
Off the top of my head, I would.
You think he's over Bont right now?
Yeah. I'd give it to him. I feel like they do seem to give it to repeat guys.
Yeah, okay.
So the Bont would make a lot of sense because he's kind of been there, done that. But I think it's well worth the reward from where Essendon were.
Yeah.
the direct change in his game and where they are now has all correlated. Like it just, what he's done this year has been massive.
Oh, it's been incredible. He's absolutely smashed it. And over the weekend, you could definitely see his impact in the game. That's for sure.
Yeah. Bont's been great this year, but his like impact is unique this year because I feel like they're swinging him forward and playing him forward when he hasn't been getting the ball in the midfield. So it's been like one of those, it's been out of necessity at times. But yeah, Zachy Merritt has just been going, he's just been plugging away. I've loved his game this year. Let's talk about Collingwood because wowzers. We look at these two injuries and two blokes that you would say you could never afford to get injured.
Yep.
You got Checkers up forward and you got DC in the ruck when stocks are already thin.
Yeah.
Now, I look at those. Checkers, the roughest run with it. Hamstring into pec. And he'll be sorely missed because not a lot of tall timber up forward at the moment. And DC, no rucks left, really. Have you?
Oh, DC's fine, I think. He's all right.
Well, he went and got checked out because his ribs were cooked.
Yeah.
And so you're telling me he's good enough to get back out there. He's just got
to be fine. Yeah,
bit of cup of cement. Suck it up, Pills.
Yeah. Oh, he's definitely looking better than I am. I'll tell him that right now. It's those things are happening. I know Checkers obviously is out for the year. I've kind of come out with the media in that sense where he has to have surgery on his pec. That's very unfortunate. I was talking to him the other day, actually. He hasn't had surgery since like 2016 or something. And I'm like, this is insane for like how many times I've seen you go back of the fly to get crunched or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. So he'll go in for surgery. Unfortunate to see him done for the season. And then DC had that, got a bit of a clip in the ribs. So they'll get that looked at. But it's going to be an interesting one to see who takes Marchek's position because we've got Krugs who's been playing that pinch hit / forward, or pinch hit ruck, and then also in the forward. And then there's the big question around Dan McStay, almost like for like with Checkers, is like, when's he going to be ready?
Can I ask you that question? Because we've been hearing all about Dan McStay at training, how he took a hanger the other week.
Yeah, he took it on TJ.
So he's sounding like he's almost ready to go.
Yeah.
What's an update on Dan McStay?
Dan McStay is absolutely killing it in training. He looks ready to go. But I think with these things, right, like you have to trust the medical people and their experience of, how to come back in the best, avenue to be able to come back to playing AFL because let's be honest, we can't really afford to be losing any tolls anymore. And that's the realistic part of this. So I think, with this, you obviously need someone like that in that role, but also you don't want to rush him to the point where something might happen and then you just lose him again. So I don't think, I don't know. I got no idea what we're going to do with it. I don't know if he goes to the VFL and when he does, or if he goes straight to the AFL and when that kind of decision is going to be made. I think over the next 3, 4 days, they'll kind of get a bit of an idea. But you have to think that Checkers going down puts pressure on him to hopefully come back sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always hate the idea of people coming back from ACLs at one of those raggedy-ass VFL venues.
Well, they're playing at Vic Park, and that's where he did his ACL originally.
Oh, let's not say that. And an update on Jamie Elliott, because I haven't followed it too closely, but like when you see it on the sheet, it says vascular. For me, when I read that, I feel like it's a bit of Mike Tyson's spinal, when he did that press.
My back, spinal.
He's like, I hurt my back. It's spinal. It's like, what's vascular? How's that going? Can you come back from that? What's that?
Yeah, I think he's running fine and everything else, and he's training, doing full training and stuff like that too. So he has been doing a bit of running with me, and I find it funny because it's real shit for me because you're essentially running next to Jamie Elliott, very opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Quick. Not so quick.
Yeah.
Can turn very quick, can't turn very quick.
He's smart because it's like, geez, Jamie's looking good. Look how quick he looks.
He's flooring it, man. He's killing rehab. Coxie, he looks like he's a few weeks out. It is quite funny though because you go run with them. And I remember the other day we're sitting there doing sprints back and forth and he's like, all right, Coxie, you're going to do 2. Jamie, you're going to do 4. He's like, whoa, whoa, we're on the same program here. He's like, you run a bit more in games than Coxie does. So he is killing it. I think he's getting close. I'm not really too sure kind of what the the day he comes back or the game he comes back in that sense. But it's good to see him back out in training. I think it just kind of his injury kind of came out of the blue and no one was really knowing what was going on or didn't expect it by any means. So it's good to see someone looking healthy, running around and looking back to normal, which is what we want.
Got to get some cattle out in the park. We'll talk about Darcy Moore. He's had a pretty rough week in terms of people talking about him not being in the form and holding him up to his lofty standards that he set for himself. And I think Fly came out and acknowledged that he's probably going through a bit of a dip in form. Now, yeah, it's hard because it's your captain. 2, I've never seen Darcy Moore go through a dip in form. How have you seen him around the club? Has he changed in any way? Like, has he been acting any different? Has he been going through it? Have people been supporting him? Like, how's Darcy been tracking?
Yeah, he seems pretty normal. Darcy's a very level-headed person. Love him to death. He's an incredible human that handles, I think, the stress of being a captain very well. Handles the pressure that's put onto his shoulders and everything else. And I think a little bit. So there's been quite a few changes in the back line. We've now had to move Jeremy Howe forward, and there's things like that do have an effect on people whenever you've played with someone for a long time, and shifting people around in that sense, because we've had to try to find another toll to be able to play in the forward line. That not only affects the player that's swapped, but also people around him that are used to playing with him, right? So. It's just been a bit of a different experience for him over the last few weeks, I think. I think people, whenever you lose games, they look for someone to blame. They look for someone and they start looking at statistics and stuff like that. But, I still look at Darcy as like, he's a freak athlete, one of the best players in the league. So you'd be silly to sit there and keep criticizing him. I think, he's someone that's, throughout the years has been able to, play to an incredible level and continues to. And I know, it's an easy thing for people just to go and blame the captain. So that might be a little bit of what's going on at the moment. And, I think overall we need to be playing better as a team. And it's not a single player that's, to blame. It's a whole team aspect. So I don't believe in these things of Darcy Moore commentary and stuff like that. I think we're all just as guilty, and we do this as a collective.
That's a really good point. I mean, you don't often make them, but Jeremy Howe, when he came on the podcast last year, he did mention that him and Darcy have pretty much an unspoken bond, and they know where each other was going to be. And once you take that pillar out, it must make it a lot harder on Darcy, who kind of is expecting Jeremy Howe to be where he normally is, and having to work with the new players that are filling that position. So that's definitely something that...
I think of it from my standpoint, it's like there's certain players I've played with for a long time, like, Jamie Elliott, Brody Marchek, right? Like those two come to mind right away, because that they are just as knowledgeable as you, if not more knowledgeable, of where they're supposed to be at certain situations of the game and when, and if they need to go back or whatever it is. And you kind of have that thing where you check in with them, you just give them the nod, but you don't really have to really kind of tell them too much, because they know what they're doing. And you have that connection just from experiences played together of games over the years. And whenever it's new people come into it, and it's, it can be a bit of not a shock, but I think you just kind of go, I need to get used to this. I need to get used to what he does and his strengths and how I can, help support him in the best way possible to make sure that, as a collective, we're doing well. So that's part of the experience, right? And I think we're learning that as a team, because we've had a few guys get injured this year, and we're having different people play different roles.
Jeremy Howe has swung forward. Could we see Darcy Moore swung forward?
I wouldn't like to see him forward. I mean, I'm all for Darcy, do whatever the hell you want, because you're a freak athlete. But I think he's been an incredible backman for us for so long, and he provides such good leadership back there. And you talk about setting up the field and setting up formation and stuff like that, and a lot of that comes from the back line and gets filtered up through the mids and the forwards and stuff. And to have your captain back there as a staple to that has been a big benefit for us. So I think I'd love to see him stay in the back line, whatever they decide to do, they decide to do. But I think with Jeremy Howe, I mean, he's kicked at least, I think, a goal every single game he's played up forward. So I can't imagine you'd be changing that too much in that situation.
Yeah, I did remember Pendles once upon a time saying that he believes that Darcy Moore's a a forward.
Someone once told me Darcy Moore is like a ruckman just because of his dad. I was like,
he could be a ruckman.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you gone against him in the ruck before?
Maybe once or twice, but
like,
you don't drive your Ferraris in the mud, mate.
Yeah,
you don't drive your Ferraris in the mud.
That got us talking before because we have seen him go forward, and he was a pretty handy forward in his time. But we were talking about this pre-podcast. Who's the best swingman the AFL's ever seen?
Oh, the best swingman I've ever seen has got to be Mark Blitzavs.
Yeah.
Mark Blitzavs has to be the best swingman I've ever seen. He plays, and I'm not talking just from the forward line to the defense. I'm talking about that dude can play wing, he can play ruck, he can play forward, he can play back. You just make sure he's on the field and he'll just sort out that role.
I'm thinking more traditional because I saw Ben Reid early Collingwood days. He was, built for it. He used to play defense, would swing forward, kick a handful of goals every now and then get injured. But he was great when he was out there. We talk about another Collingwood great. He moved to Freo, and they thought he was a defender. Yeah. Chris Tarrant started and played at forward at Collingwood. Then Freo said he's a gun defender, so Collingwood got him back and said, "Okay, be our gun defender." I also liked Michael Hurley. He's absolute jet at both ends of the field. There's so many good ones.
I kind of like it just for the pun of the name. Cale Hooker was a great swinger.
Hooker swinger.
He was a good swinger. He used to go forward, back, wherever you wanted him. He'd just put him there. He'd do it.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's the McGoverns. I just want to see, Matthew Pavlich, another great one.
Very good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good swingers out there. I'm sure we're missing some. LRT, we're talking about Lewis Roberts-Thompson. Good swingman. I don't know. There's got to be some swingers out there, but I reckon Darcy Moore, good swingman. But we just don't see
We'll go Jeremy Howe at the moment.
Jeremy Howe, good swinger.
Yeah.
We'll look ahead because we do have Ash Johnson. If you're looking for a replacement forward, he did just kick 5 goals against the Dolphins in the VFL in a losing side too. So extra hard to kick 5 goals.
Got the bongos out there in Frankston.
Got the bongos.
I think there's a rumor has it there was a saxophone there over the weekend. They've upgraded their chorus.
Jeepers. Ned Long, massive shining light out of the game on the weekend. He was that clean.
He came in and just made a difference right away.
Made a massive difference. And you're looking at you're like, oh, that's a new number out there. Who's that? And he was picking them up at his feet. He was spinning out of tackles. He was clean. He was hitting targets. He was great. So hopefully we've found one there. And Ned Long, Pendles did kick his 200th goal. So he's up on you. You got a bit of catching to do.
I got a few goals to go, I think.
To get back out there. Crispy, if you kicked him at that rate, 3 goals in 3 minutes. If you just kick a goal a minute for the rest of your career, you might have a chance. But we will get to you and your injury. Mason, give us an injury update.
An injury update. I've actually gone really well. I think as of today, I'm kind of ahead of schedule from what they expected, so that's good signs. I'm running freely, doing all that. There's a little bit of something I need to figure out to be able to play. So we're hoping the next few weeks. Yeah, which is kind of crazy to think because I wasn't even really able to run like a week and a half ago. Yeah. So it's progressed really well in a short amount of time, which is a good sign. And it's exciting to get back into drills. Like I'm actually doing kicking and stuff with the team and things along that nature. So you feel like you're back in it. You feel like you're back part of it rather than being on the side doing rehab and just running straight lines. You're actually in drills doing different things. So it's progressing really well and we're happy with it. And, obviously with the situation that's going on at the club, you want to be back there as soon as possible to help fill that tall role. But, the body will do what the body wants to do. And hopefully we can soon be back out there in a few weeks.
So it's just back. Now it's down to your knee. So the rest is good?
The rest is good. Yeah. Got the cheekbones all figured out. The ribs all sorted. The hands looking good. What else did I screw up? Concussion's fine. Just let me count them off on my fingers. I'll get to the second hand. Sorry. Let's sort that out.
Well, now it's you'd say you're fresh and ready to rock for the last part of the season.
Yeah. We'll be roaring and rearing and roaring to go.
I like
as
it.
I say.
Let's look at the preview for the rest of the games for the week. Collingwood, Geelong. It doesn't get any easier for you guys. Geelong off a big win. Hawthorn, Fremantle in Launceston.
Oh, good to see Tasmania's team getting the run.
That's going to be a very interesting game.
What do you think?
That's going to be a very,
what do you think on that one?
I'm going Freo.
You going to go Freo?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we're going to go Collingwood on the first one. That's a given. But
yes, yeah.
Hawthorn versus Freo at Launceston.
Yeah. Well, Freo actually, I feel like they play there a bit. They always put those, interstate teams down in
travel
Tassie.
schedule's not great, is it?
No.
I'm going to go Hawthorn in that. I'm going to have a little bit of an upset there. I've got Hawthorn beating Freo.
I don't even know if it's an upset. I don't know what the odds would be on that one. That's a crazy.
Hawthorn got smacked over the weekend, so.
True. Sydney North.
What do you reckon? At the SCG? What do you
I feel so bad for North.
Are you locking this in?
This is Sydney coming off 2 losses in a row at
North
the SCG.
coming off a W against the Gold Coast Suns.
Giving them false economy. They think that they're good again, and they're not as good as Sydney. So Sydney plus 10 goals. Western Bulldogs, Carlton. Yep. I got to go Carlton.
At Marvel.
But Carlton's Marvel too, bro. So, I feel like Carlton are just that bloody good, and they just came up against a bloody good team on the weekend. So
yeah, I'm going to actually, stuff you. I'm going Western Bulldogs. I got the Bulldogs beating Carlton at Marvel.
Yeah, I feel like teams like St Kilda last week, when they had their back against the wall this week, they win that next game.
Yep.
And then
Bulldogs have been very much that story all season long.
Yeah. Adelaide, St Kilda, Adelaide Oval.
This is a toss-up.
I give it to Adelaide, just at Adelaide Oval.
I'm going to get back on the Saints.
Yeah.
The Saints are marching in, mate. You get sorted.
Oh, can I?
Beat Sydney last week.
I'm going to, because I see what you're going to do here with your cocklock. So I'm just going to give mine to Sydney against North.
Yeah, okay. That's a
real,
out is what that is.
It's a safe one.
Wow.
Melbourne, Essendon at the Chi. I'm going to give this to Essendon.
That's a very good game. Max. If Max Gone is out, I got to give it to Essendon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting game.
It's a tough one. I don't know who Melbourne's going to try to put in the middle, but Draper's going to have a day out.
Gold Coast Suns versus Port at People's First.
Yo, I can't jump off my team. I love Ken Hinkley. We know that on this podcast. We love him to the death. But the Gold Coast Suns undefeated at home.
Yeah.
They need to get back on it. Dimma's fired up. Boys are going to get fired up. We're going to get this dub for the people because it's people's first stadium, brother.
See, and I assume that's your cocklock.
That's the cocklock of the week.
Damn straight, because I like Port being back, and it's a win-win for me. I reckon if Port go on and win, we're all happy here. If Gold Coast lose at home, and they're losing away, Dimma is going to he's going to start dropping C-bombs next because he can't F-bomb them to wins. Richmond, GWS at the G. Oof.
Danger game?
Nah.
Danger game?
Nah, GWS. No. They're back.
At the G?
Jesse Hogan, it's his old stomping ground. He'll probably kick 6.
6.
Got a bit of room to move down there. West Coast, Brisbane, Optus.
Ooh. Danger game?
Nah. Brisbane are back.
Brisbane are back.
Yeah,
Brisbane are back. I'm going Brisbane getting the dub over there.
All right, we got some good fan questions that have come in, and we love the fan questions, and we appreciate all the support. If you haven't already, jump on, subscribe to the podcast, jump on to Spotify, subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, all of that. Follow us on the socials. Let's jump into it.
If you want to be a part of the fan questions, you have to follow us on Insta. Instagram's where we put them up. And we have a look at them before we come to the podcast on the day, and we give love to the people that give love to us.
Because we put them in the story, and you won't see them in the story unless you're following us. That's how it all works. You know how social media works. We'll give this one to Belle. If you could be friends with any fictional character, who would it be and why? Any fictional character, movie character, cartoon character.
That's a good question. I'm a big Marvel fan. So I think just like Tony Stark.
Oh, yeah.
How cool would it be to be friends with Tony Stark?
Yeah.
You just rock up to his house. The thing just throws the Iron Man suit on. You go for a little fly around California.
Just a rich guy?
Why not? Maybe the house falls into the ocean because someone's attacking you and trying to ruin the universe. Yeah, that could possibly happen. I know that's a risk we're taking, but I think it's worth it. I really do.
Yeah, that's a good one. I reckon maybe Wile E. Coyote, because if maybe he's got...
I was thinking Popeye.
If he's got 2 people, maybe we can catch that fucking Roadrunner.
We can finally get him. We can finally get that son of a bitch.
Imagine that.
The anchor always gets you.
Maybe he's looking, he's got one eye on the coyote, but he doesn't see the cock come up behind him and just wrap him up.
Wow.
That's my
come from behind story.
That's my last name for those listening. We got H. Anne or Annie, 1993. Best 4th of July memory.
Yeah, shout out to everyone that celebrated 4th of July, whether you're American or not. But far out, 4th of July, bit of a story. We used to go every single year to Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnic.
Was he there?
He was there for I think he's still doing it, to be honest. Him and his family are running it. It's like 40 or 50 years going strong. He used to be out in the middle of nowhere in like Lukenbach, Texas or something. And as kids, we would go there. And I think most people know Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Fan of marijuana. Smokes the reefer on his own, right? Doesn't mind it. As kids, you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You didn't know what that was.
No.
As an adult, I know what that smell is, right? So I didn't. Now, as an adult, realizing that I was taken by my parents to essentially a marijuana festival of country music, every single year for 4th of July. Look, don't get me wrong, fireworks fantastic,
even better,
even better after
you've had some of
those. But
Willie's medicine.
It is so funny to me, but that was always my go-to memory. We used to watch Willie Nelson just absolutely kill it on the guitar. And just smoke a ton of marijuana. And everyone out there was too. But I just was always like, oh, they're smoking cigarettes.
Filthy Phil. He's just out there. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. Keezer Dodson. Apologies if I got that wrong. What's a fear you're yet to conquer?
Heights.
I was thinking commitment.
Commitment's up there too. Commitment's actually commitment. Commitment's probably the top.
Why are tall people so scared of heights?
I think it's just the taller you are, the further you have to fall, and how hard, how much it hurts whenever you hit the ground. So then if you just add in extra height, it just makes it even worse.
Same goes for commitment. The more you love, the harder you fall. No?
Neither one of us would understand that.
I don't have any fears. I'm pretty fearless.
No fears at all?
No,
Snakes? Spiders?
No. Fearless.
Sharks?
Pretty fearless.
You would jump in the water with sharks?
Yeah.
You're kidding yourself.
No, I think
Space?
I subscribe
drowning,
heavily to ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I try not to think about it.
If you went to Port Lincoln and there was a great white shark in the water after you jumped it, you'd be okay getting in it.
If someone was like, oh, get in, we've trained them or something, I'd be like, all right. I just believe people. I just believe people.
Yeah, sounds good.
Get in this cage. We've reinforced it. It's strong as they can't bite. Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, cool. I trust you.
Like if I did bungee jumping, I'm not questioning the rope. If I jumped out of a plane, I'm not questioning the parachute. If I don't question stuff. I just
do it.
I just do it.
That's it.
Yeah, I almost suffocated to death when I was younger, and I don't have claustrophobia or anything.
What?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just too dumb to get scared or something. But
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
Anyway, I don't have anything.
Interesting.
But, yeah. Moo 3.
Moo.
This is a great one. Would you rather never go back to America again or be single forever?
It's such an odd question. I love it.
It's brutal.
Never go back to America again or be single forever.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love my parents. It'd be tough to say no to them. I think I'll just have to be single forever and just be loved by everyone.
To be fair, it's pretty close to that being the truth.
But, I mean, we're essentially living it right now, aren't we? It's
you
pretty
can
much
go back to America
happening right now,
and
isn't
you've
it?
been single forever. So.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I mean, well, single what? As in, not married?
No, just single, dying alone.
Not allowed to
dying alone
have
or
any
never going
physical
home.
Things happen between you and a woman. Is that the idea?
You can have sex. That's
calm down with the word, man. Whoa!
What are you thinking? Something different?
Brayden.
Just hand jobs.
Dude, whoa! All right, censor that, please. Censor that. Good to know what your favorite is. Now, let's move on to the next question.
We got Jessica Mackey.
Yeah.
Do you know any AFL players who are vegan?
I do, actually. I'm pretty sure Jordan Roughhead was whenever he was playing. He's still coaching and does that. Chris Mayne was vegan. I want to say Ben Reed went vegan for a little bit too back in the day.
Classic Reedy.
Yeah, well, his wife's a naturopath, so very into health and holistic kind of stuff. So they were vegan. There are players that are vegan. I think it's one of those things because we have lunch catered to the club, right, for 2-3 days a week. And they do have like their separate pan, the vegan pan, right? You know, you always have that friend that's the vegan that sits at the table and always has to ask the question to the waiter.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate to tell you, I'm vegan. The waiter's going,
it's like, what can I get on the menu? And the answer is always, chips.
Yeah, chips, we got a salad.
It's like, we got a Caesar salad. We can take the chicken out of it. Like, it's always like an afterthought thing. I feel bad for them.
Well, you got to go to like a vegan restaurant.
What's the other one? The pescatarians, you can eat fish.
You can eat fish, but you can't eat meat. Yeah. I don't know. There's too many of them nowadays. I can't think of it. It's like religions. I'll go into like some other questions because I put this out there to the world. I haven't really experienced local footy very much, right? Yeah. And the VFL team went down to Frankston. Frankston's known for its bongos, right? And they drum those up the whole time. It's a bit of a show there. Then they had the saxophone this week. You know, they do anything to make the most ridiculous noises you could think of. I said, what's the weirdest thing you've kind of seen at a footy ground? And these are some of the answers that we got. I think there's still things out there. I mean, you talk about the pig on the field, pig at full forward, you know, things like that. We had one person, Zach Matthews, came in, and they said playing footy in the country, and they had 44-gallon drums. Loved the specificity, or wherever the hell that word is, specific nature of 44-gallon drums, with fires in them around the ground. Yeah. So they're essentially being watched by homeless people, just having to burn around the ground. Is that the idea, or is it? Yeah. Do you not? You just
crack a few tins, stand around a barrel of fire, and watch the boys slip around in the mud for a bit.
Does that actually happen in footy grounds?
Yeah.
Have you seen that personally at a footy ground?
Yeah. And
44-gallon drums. Is that like a thing?
Yeah, it's like a normal thing.
That's absurd. Can you? Can we do that to the VFL?
Yeah, like the metal ones. You get the metal barrels. You stab some holes in there to get the air in there.
Do you make s'mores and stuff on it? You know, you roast the marshmallow and you bring the little graham crackers out. Give you a Hershey's chocolate on
there.
Bit
of effort.
Real nice.
Go up to the canteen, ask the canteen lady for a couple of tins and a couple
What's the weirdest thing you've seen in a canteen? Someone showed me the thing the other day. It was a whole like sandwich with dim sims in it.
Oh yeah, we used to do what was it? A sausage roll in a hot cheese roll.
Huh?
That's great though. That's some carbs though. But you get
a lot of carbs.
You get a sausage roll, and then you used to have a bread roll with cheese in it that would get grilled, and then you'd put the sausage roll in that, and then you'd cover that in sauce, and then you'd eat that.
Jeez,
how many calories do you reckon that is?
Absurd. And this is another thing that kind of reminds me of that HSP. Like, in what point in time did we just go, you know what? Let's just have a suicide of stuff where we're just going to throw it all in there and just put as many sauces on top as possible and then eat the damn thing.
I think in terms of the terrible mix, like people in the UK have it the worst, where they're like it's like Indian food with like chips and like gravy and like they just like take bits and pieces and they mix it all together and they just do it terribly.
Yeah, I mean the poutine in Canada is pretty woof.
Poutine.
You know what poutine is?
No.
Yeah, you got your mind in a hole at the moment, so I'm not going to even go on that. Another person said William Mahon. Someone doing a handstand taking a mark with their feet. Do you think you could do that?
No.
1,000 tries. You think you could do it once?
Oh, if someone was lobbing it up to me and stuff.
Feet mark the ball.
Nah, because I can't even handstand.
You get a step one. That's a very interesting one. Another one. In Wagga, a man on the mark dropping his shorts and costing his team a 50-meter penalty in the final quarter.
That's one of them ones.
Out in the game? I mean, that's a unique thing to. That was like kids. There's families at this game.
Like when what's his name climbed the behind post. Dane Rampy. It's you're coming up with it on the fly, but it's illegal.
All right, that's it for the weird and wacky things we see at football grounds. I'd love to hear more, to be honest. I want to hear some really wacky, weird stuff because I feel like
best foods. Like the best foods, we put up a little poll. We got some of those going, but I feel like each ground, like the Borough Burgers example, each ground has their own like little niche canteen food. There's got to be nominate your club for the best food. What's your club's best food?
Milk and like chicken tenders and chips.
Yeah, there's got to be something a bit more special than that.
I think they still. I know this sounds really wrong, and the way I'm saying it probably makes no sense. But like, I would crush some sushi at a footy ground.
Nah.
No.
Nah.
I'm weird. I love sushi, man. I would just crush it every single day.
It's like when we go to like Alice Springs or whatever for the footy, and People are buying like the seafood basket.
Oh,
and you're like, you're literally
nah.
the furthest place on the planet Earth from the ocean. Why would you buy the seafood basket?
I don't think that's going to be fresh by any means. Let's get a little poll out there. Figure out what people really want to see at the footy. Or even some of the weirdest things you've seen in a canteen at the footy.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. Well, before we finish up, I do want to give one last shout out. There is an incredible man who's been a massive part of my life and part of my career that's helped me be successful, and someone that I value at a very, very high level that's had an unfortunate diagnosis of, I'm going to say this probably wrong, so I'm going to announce it wrong, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Is that right? Yes. He's a great man, man that's been part of the Collingwood Football Club and has been around for a long time. Anthony Rocker, as people know him as Pebs, has been diagnosed with this, and it's one of those things we do give a lot of love on this podcast, and as we always say, we say prayers up to the people we want to see be healthy and get back to their best. So before we get out of here, I do want to say massive prayers up to Pebs. He's an absolute legend, a man I can't talk highly enough about, and I know he's going to absolutely smash this and be able to win this fight. So massive shout out to him before we get on out of here.
He's a lovely bloke. Funny, a good sense of humour, dry sense of humour. Sometimes you don't know when he's coming at you or when he's making a joke. Yep. But we loved him on Lully Street when we used to do Lully Street back in the day for the Collingwood Footy Club. But great man, love you, Pebs. Prayers up and all the best with the recovery.
But that is it from us today. Thank you so much for listening in and having us as part of your week. We appreciate it here on the podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, everything else that comes with that. Follow us on social so you can be part of the fan questions, get your name in the podcast. But that is it for us for this week. Have an incredible day. May your tipping go very well, and may you have an incredible weekend.
Cheers.
That's always peace.